Hey everybody, it's the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and you are watching the Weekly Ringer series here on clanofthegraywolf.com. Lots to talk about today, including just a crap load of really horrible movies, which we're going to highlight, stemming from my question from last week about the worst of the worst in your DVD collections and your movie collections out there. Lots to talk about there. And I'm going to give you, as I always do, my own opinion and show you my own worst movie for my collection, which I think you guys are going to... I think many of you will probably be, I think your expectations will be fulfilled by the crappiness of the movie that I'm going to show you. For some of you, though, it probably doesn't even meet the requirements of the really, really crappy-ass movies that you guys put on there. Which is why we have to talk about them. We have to talk about all of them. So, I'm going to get to that in just a second. I'm also going to ask you guys a question for next week at the end of the video for next week's Weekly Ringer, which has a decidedly much better topic in terms of good things instead of celebrating really bad things. But it's going to be specifically about the kind of level of quality games that are out at the moment, which I think is a great topic. So, stay tuned for that. So here we go. Let's see. Lots of things, and you can see, right, by the way, several of you that know the show very well, you can see that I'm already playing with the Scientific D6, which is coming up for our comment section in just a moment. For any of you that have not seen the glorious splendor of the Scientific D6 from Youngblood, you are about to see it during our little comments section. Before I do all that, I also want to make sure that we take some time, as we always do here in the Weekly Ringer, to welcome the new members of our community. Folks that have been watching for a while and might have just put their first comment in or had something interesting to say because they've really been horribly disinterested by all the questions I've asked thus far and thought, hey, this is a good opportunity. Finally, this idiot asked a good question and I'll just go ahead and post something about it. Whatever the case might be, I'm glad you ponied up and I'm glad you spent some time to put in comments. I read all the comments. I enjoy all the comments. I laugh out loud to many of the comments that you guys put in there. It is a joyful part of my week, so I want to thank you all for that. But anyway, we've got, by my count, 3 new members to the community this week. I think only one of you, though, followed my instructions and actually did what I said in the video by telling me in the comment that you are commenting for the first time. So I'm going to mention you first. Joshua Travis, welcome to the Weekly Ringer, and thank you for following my instructions and saying, hey, this is my first post. I have never posted here before, and your other questions suck ass, but this one's a good one, so no, you didn't say that. You could have said that, though, and I would have been like, okay, he's got a point. Anyway, welcome to you, Joshua. Great to have you on board. The other folks, Tasty and Harry. Now, I'm unsure as to whether there are actually 2 people commenting under the same moniker there, like there's Tasty, and then there's Harry. Of those 2, I would much rather be Tasty than I would be Harry. I can't imagine Harry's a very nice guy. Unless, well, maybe, I don't know. But maybe it's just one person with 2 personalities. I don't know. In any case, maybe they're Tasty and Harry. I don't know. But in any case, great to have you on board. Thank you for joining the Weekly Ringer. And last, but certainly not least, in fact, I think first in most categories, is Bina91. Welcome to you as well. Welcome to all of you guys. And for those of you that are watching and would like to participate in the conversation, please do so. For those of you that are interested only in hearing me jabber on endlessly about crap that you only mildly care about, then the video and the MP3, which you can find right underneath the video if you click the whole post, you can download the MP3 version of the show, any of the shows, since, I don't know, about 10 ago. No, it's not that long ago. But many of you are asking me for MP3 versions of the show so you could listen on your way to work or listen when you are in the subway station waiting for the train. I don't know. The point is, some of you wanted an MP3 version and I'm giving it to you now. You just got to go click, 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 go find it, go download it, listen to it, love it, enjoy it. It's the sound of my voice. All right, without further ado, let's get into the question of last week. By the way, the sun is participating a lot better this week, so I'm very thankful for the sun for not creating a barrier to my video creation this week. Thank you, sun. Last week, I asked you guys a question about the worst movies in your collections. I asked you, go dig through it and tell me what the worst movie is in your collection, and tell me why and maybe how you got it. And there were a lot of cool stories that came out of this, and I'm going to mention several of them that I thought were very good, or at least ones that I thought, if I had these DVDs, I'd feel pretty embarrassed about it, or just really bad movies, many of which I didn't actually even know, but had to go do a little research on it because you guys talked about how crappy they were. Several of them were just so funny, I laughed out loud at the descriptions of them that I had to include them, and I've never seen them. But in any case, as I always do, I'm going to kind of talk about some of the overarching things that happened this week. One is that many movies that you guys talked about, you probably shouldn't be all that embarrassed about. I'm not sure who made the distinction of, well, maybe this isn't about bad movies, but movies that I should be embarrassed to have in my collection. I don't necessarily think those things correlate, although maybe they do. But, for example, you could have a really, maybe you have a really, really good movie that is just, as a matter of fact, several of you mentioned the idea of having something like a Disney movie, a Cinderella, right? A really good movie, but probably doesn't befit the DVD collection of a healthy grown man. Maybe. I don't know. I have Snow White in my collection. I'm not embarrassed about it. I certainly wouldn't put that on my list of most embarrassed movies that I should be embarrassed about, or the movies that were so bad that they should be on the worst movies list. But in any case, I think many of you guys have put out movies there. Several of the commenters in self-policed here and stepped in and said, you shouldn't be embarrassed about that. That's a great movie. Which I think is true. There are several movies out there I thought that did very, very well, that were good movies that probably didn't need to be. Don't be embarrassed about them, guys. It's okay. It's okay to like movies that maybe your friends don't like, right? That's okay. Maybe your friends are just stupid. In which case, you should just get new friends. Okay? All right. So moving on to number 2 on my overall kind of list. You know what never ceases to amaze me about the Weekly Ringer, and when we talk about games, and we talk about music, and we talk about movies, and we talk about TV, it's incredible to me how movie tastes vary wildly. You get really a whole gamut, a whole range of opinions as to what is good, what is bad, what is embarrassing, what is not, and the things that are appropriate and the things that aren't appropriate, and so on and so forth. It goes on and on, folks. The point is, I think, it always amazes me to see what kind of breadth of stuff the community has a part of out there. You guys have your tentacles kind of in all kinds of different parts of culture, and not just even American culture, by the way, or even Western culture, but you guys have it kind of everything. You're just absorbing a lot of stuff, and that always broadens my horizon. It's one of the reasons why I'm here. I don't know a lot of these things. I like to look things up when you guys talk about them. It's like, oh man, I never knew about that. That's awesome. Totally. So, big surprise, big shock here, guys. But movie preferences and what we probably consider the worst movies of all time vary wildly. And to a certain extent, you can't trust the old Rotten Tomatoes or, the IMDb star rating or whatever on a movie, because I'm not sure that necessarily will represent the movie if you went and saw it yourself. But then again, you can like a movie. The other thing is, the third thing I was going to mention is our tastes change as we get older. There is a great episode of South Park called Getting Old. Those of you that have not seen it, you absolutely should. It's on Netflix. But it is basically about how our taste change as we get older, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that we have to still be fans of the things that we were fans of when we were 5 years old. They might have been really, really cool when we were 5, and that's great. And they might not be Shakespeare. That's okay too. So, without further ado, let's jump into some of the actual direct comments. I'm going to begin with the Youngblood extravaganza. And folks, I think I echo the sentiments of many of you out there when I say it's just damn great to have Youngblood back with us. One of the very originals to the Weekly Ringer and to the Clan of the Grey Wolf. It's great to have Youngblood with us. Youngblood gives me a challenge every once in a while to take out my scientific D6, as you can see right here. A 6-sided die, to those of you that don't play Dungeons & Dragons. And to roll it up with a various number of choices that are on the screen, and then I will roll the die and I will find out what his choice and selection will be for this week. Here we go. That would be it was a 6, Final Fantasy Spirits Within. This is a really crappy movie. And I have to say, if I had this movie in my collection, I think I would be embarrassed about it. It's pretty bad. I saw it in the theater. This was during the height of, it goes to show you how things are cyclical, right? Final Fantasy VII became a part of the national zeitgeist. People knew what video games were because of Final Fantasy VII. That's how freaking big it got. So big that Square decided to fund its own movie and hire a bunch of really, really talented actors. I think the way this came about was someone at Square said, man, these cutscenes that we're making for these Final Fantasy games are really good. What if we just made a whole bunch of freaking cutscenes and cut the game out? You'd have Final Fantasy Spirits Within. At least that was the thought. It's a beautiful movie. I mean, it's CG the whole way through. It does a lot of motion capture. Actually, I don't think they actually captured any. I don't think they did capture for that movie. But in any case, they try to capture the emotions of these actors. I think Alec Baldwin's in it. I mean, like, there's some very, very prominent actors in this movie. But it as many Square Enix, at the time it was just Squaresoft, as many Squaresoft cutscenes leave you feeling, I think the movie did a very similar thing to that, which was it basically left you kind of emotionless. Like, what you're seeing is not powerful. It's not engaging. It's not very fun. It's all wrong. It kind of leaves you with that kind of uncanny valley feeling. You're staring at something that's not quite human and is kind of disgusting because it's not human. You know, watch something like The Polar Express that comes out several years later from Final Fantasy Spirits Within, and you'll see a movie that is completely CGI, but has real characters in it, and it's very engaging, and you feel, you have a sense that the characters are feeling things, and that's transmitting. Watching Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, there's no emotion kind of coming from these characters, and that really limits the efficacy of the movie. That, you wrap it up inside of an old humdrum, still crappy, garbage, plot line from a Final Fantasy game, which normally are pretty absurd, and you get Final Fantasy The Spirits Within. So, awesome choice, Youngblood. As a matter of fact, I had that one down for Mr. K later on as well, so Mr. K, sorry, but Final Fantasy Spirits Within sucks, no matter who you are, and no matter what you brought it up with. Alright, next, I want to talk about the Beer Ninja, who mentioned in the comment, I guess in his comment earlier, the movie Fools Rush In, which to me is probably not one of the crappiest movies ever made, but is on par with the crappiness of the movie that I'm going to show you, so I decided to put it in there. But not only because of that. The real reason I put the Beer Ninja in here today is because another one of his comments was about the entire curriculum vitae of one Hulk Hogan. The incredible mastery that is involved in not only Thunder in Paradise, but all of the ridiculous movies that the Hulkster did in the late 80s and the early 90s that were just plain awful. And those movies, if you own them on DVD, they're not only really, really horrible, but you should be embarrassed to have those, except for the fact that Hulk Hogan is freaking awesome, and therefore you shouldn't be embarrassed unless if you're around friends that you know were alive in the 80s and have any kind of semblance of culture. Oh, and by the way, the more fancy you are with your pinky in the air, that's how fancy. Anyway, that's a reference from a Hulk Hogan movie. Anyway, so Zork86 talked about The Room. This was one I had never seen. Heard about it. Heard that several of our